Hello everyone, and finally, welcome back to the very chilly city of Alpenglow. I know it's been a while. I hope that if you're watching this, you are either still interested in this series or you're new to it. If you are new to it, I'll just mention that this is my very much less detailed series, more lightly modded series compared to what I usually do, where I go into lots of detail. So if you're more interested in detail, you might want to check out my other series, Todos Santos, which is set in Puerto Rico. Otherwise, welcome to Alpenglow. So we're moving away from the Cardston area that we worked on the last few episodes, which was pretty much a second city within the vicinity of Alpenglow, although it's technically under the purview of the city of Alpenglow, but that's beside the point. Now we're moving back and we're going over to the eastern end of the city, which is going to be a little more modern than the rest of it. So there's going to be quite a bit of low density, very spaced out residential areas, in addition to another bit of a city center that is also fairly low density as far as city centers go. Or it's really more of a commercial center, it's not another city center. And before we get into what I'm actually doing in the build here, I'd just like to reiterate that I had some technical problems recording this. You can see the frame rate is not quite what you'd normally expect. And this was not anything to do with the actual recording of the video in terms of the capture. This was a problem with the game. And I'm not sure. It's something to do, as far as I can tell, with the zoning grid being up. Like you can see here when I'm building roads, that's happening. And then when I am not building roads, it's not happening. So as far as I can tell, that's the problem. And this is not something I've had an issue with since recording this series, so I'm not sure exactly what that was. Unfortunately, at this point, there's nothing I can do about that. But hopefully you'll still be able to tell what I'm doing. Either way, I apologize for that. So what am I actually doing here? So I wanted it to look like the city has taken advantage of pretty much all the real estate it can in terms of the flat land of this valley, because it's obviously in a valley in between two mountain ridges. So obviously it's going to be cheapest to develop this very limited amount of flat land that they have before they start building up onto the sides of the mountains, as far as that's actually possible. And that's really the goal of the series, is just to have this whole valley filled up with city and have it look like a really cool city from above. And I think we're really getting there. But as for this particular neighborhood, it's just a pretty standard, wealthy, very low density neighborhood where you have houses with big plots of land, big yards that are spaced out. There's not a lot of public infrastructure. Most of the roads aren't paved, although some of them are. There aren't very many bus lines that run through the area. There is this train track. That's just the main train track that serves the city and runs through the city, providing outside connections, and that runs through the neighborhood. I suppose that, I don't know if that would bring down the land value a bit, because you'd have to have a train track in your backyard. I think most people probably wouldn't find that desirable. I don't know about you, but I would love it to have a train track right next to my house, because every time a train goes by, I would just have a free ticket to go train spotting, which sounds good to me. In my opinion, I think it makes the land more valuable. I kind of want to live here, actually. Except for the whole negative 8.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Hopefully that's not a regular occurrence. And then I'm just outlining this neighborhood. It's actually technically ends up being two neighborhoods. But anyway, I'm outlining those because it's kind of, the main purpose of them in the game, I believe, other than just naming places, is to apply policies at a district level as opposed to city level. I don't really do that for the most part in this city. I don't have a need. So I'm mostly just doing it for aesthetics. And it's kind of fun to be able to go in and see how much population and how many jobs are in each district. Plus, it's just really satisfying to see all these areas lining up like this, pieced together like a puzzle. I'm calling it ASDF2 here. That's not the final name. Although, I can see it. Maybe I'll change it back. Anyway, because when you look at each particular district readout, it tells you how many people live there, or at least how many households there are. I'm not sure if it shows households or population, which obviously is not a one-to-one ratio. But anyway, it shows you statistics about the district, which is kind of nice. So you can go in and see, how many thousands of people live in downtown versus the more spread out areas. And it's just a fun feature that I think really makes the city feel alive, at least when you're building it. And by the way, this save game will be uploaded, barring technical issues. This save game will be going up on the Steam Workshop once the series is over. So if you do want to fly around the city and look at that sort of thing inspect the various neighborhoods and take a look at the transit lines, that kind of stuff. That will all be on the workshop for you to download. And I'm going to try my best to update the mod list to something that's compatible with the 2022 version of City Skylines with the recent patch that came with the Plazas and Promenades DLC. So hopefully everything will work fine. No promises with that, but I'm going to do everything I can to make that work. So back to the build here. Basically the main access to these two neighborhoods is on that highway there. Just the small 2-lane highway, not the freeway, although there is freeway access as well, of course. And that's what I've called the old Alpenglow highway. So this would have been the first road that was built through here to service Cardston was actually the original town that was built as a mining town in the 19th century. And then Alpenglow rose up, basically where the downtown is now. And that was when the railroad was built through this area, because Cardston isn't really in a spot that's super accessible to put a train station, so they put a train station farther to the east, and that's where Alpenglow came. And then, of course, since the two cities have basically met up and merged. But anyway, this original highway, obviously, it probably doesn't follow the exact route that the original one did, but it's basically been shifted and changed over the years, but maintained the name and the same general route. And now it's basically just a main road that runs across the southern end of Alpenglow. And then for the actual roads that make up the neighborhood, and I just tried to go with a basic low-density road hierarchy. So you have the highway, and then you have the freeway and its frontage road on the north end. And then I just wanted to have kind of some twisty, curvy roads that will, for the most part, prevent people from using these neighborhoods as through roads to get from point A to B. So they're basically not going to have any motivation to use these roads unless they're, going to a house that's here or a business that's on the outskirts of this neighborhood. And the result, and this is really just a theme that we've been recapitulating over the course of making Alpenglow, is that we have the main roads kind of making big super blocks, and then we have just kind of almost random looking curvy roads that fill in those areas and just kind of look like their own self-contained road network. And I mentioned before that most of the roads aren't paved. That's really not true, because we're working now in ASDF 2, and I suppose that means the other one is ASDF. I don't really remember. But anyway, we're working on this one, and I wanted to give the look that there's a bit of a transition between these paved roads that kind of indicate more public service to the infrastructure, and the gravel ones that are more like private drives that haven't been paved. So this neighborhood is mostly paved, but it still has that really loose, curvy, almost suburban-looking road network. And then the other one, which I'm just going to call ASDF for now, has more gravel driveways, while still maintaining the same general look of the road network. And the houses are a little bit more spaced out in that other neighborhood. And I'm really just trying to get that look with limited space, because obviously this map has limited space because it's just a valley. And so I wanted to try to use what space I could to give the look of a transition between more density, more public service, and less density, less public service in the other neighborhood. And the theory, at least then, is that when you look down at the city from above, you're going to be able to see that transition that in real life would probably take a lot more space. Hopefully you're going to be able to see that just in this little City Skylines city. Yeah, so hopefully that comes across. Okay, so we're just about done with the foundations of the neighborhood, and now we're going to do the amazing thing that I just love to do in this game, which is cover everything with trees. And I think that also helps to just solidify the look, that this is a bit more suburban feeling, even though they're not technically suburbs. I also have these little villages up in the mountains. Unfortunately, I didn't record the building of those, but they're pretty boring. They're just long, winding roads with little houses on them. Pretty simple. So hopefully you can get your fill of looking at that here. And of course, like I said, it will be on the workshop eventually, so you'll be able to zoom around and take a look at those at your leisure. And addition into looking nice and realistic, I think it really helps to blend the city into the surroundings, to give it this tree cover. Obviously, in a city like this, you're not going to have giant areas that have been cut down for agriculture or that sort of thing. But even if they had done something like that, this is the sort of place, I imagine at least, where they would make an effort to have a lot of tree cover and to maintain their forests, or at least that's what I hope they would do. So just try to go back where it's logical and clear out a few areas where I imagine that it would either be above tree line or for various reasons there have been, the trees have more trouble growing. And that's just to give it a little bit of variation instead of just having this same look of tree cover everywhere. Although it still covers 90% of the city, which is fine with me. But I just wanted to give it little patches of emptiness here and there. And if you have emptiness now and then, it's even nicer when you do end up seeing the trees. Now we're going to pull back and get a nice view and work on some bus lines. And I'm beginning that just by pulling this bright blue line over from Northwestern, which is actually in the northeast of the city, but I'm just considering that to be a general name. Take Northwestern University, for example, has absolutely nothing to do with its location, or at least I don't think it does. I don't actually know the etymology of that school's name. But anyway, I'm fairly certain that that's just an association of some kind. I don't know exactly with what, but it's not a literal description of its location, obviously. But anyway, we're taking that bus line from Northwestern and dragging it over to another bus station east of it, which we're going to be surrounding with development in a future episode. And that's just generally going to serve this eastern end of town. Although in a second, I will be dragging it down just so it meets up at the very western tip of this new area. And then we have this orange bus line, which is running along the northern side of this neighborhood, or this, not neighborhood, but general area that we're going to be making. And I just wanted to have these bus lines running along main roads. And the idea is, I guess, that everyone would live close enough to a main road with a bus line that they could just have that accessibility to public transit. That's going to take them either directly to their destination or to another stop or a main station where they can transfer to another bus or a train or whatever they want to do. And by the way, if you are interested in the bus lines of this city, I have a little secret video that is linked down in the description that you won't find anywhere else. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Again, that's in the description. Unlisted secret video. Really, it's just unlisted because it's not exactly interesting if you're not interested in the bus lines, so I didn't want to clutter up the series. But if you are interested in it, I would be happy for you to check that out. All right, so we're nearing the end of the episode, and we're also actually nearing the end of the series. Because like I've mentioned before, this is really just a short project meant to make a cool looking city from above. It's not so much focused on details or particular projects. Of course, I intended it to be a short series, and now it's been a couple of years at least since I've started it, but better late than never, right? And that's not copium. It's just true. Okay, anyway, we're going to finish it. We're almost there. This is the third to last episode, main episode. Obviously, there will be some cinematic videos once the series is completed, but as far as building the series, we're closing in on being finished. So I hope you'll join me for the next episode of Alpenglow for the rest of the series. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.